Today, a new Persona game is coming, and it's Persona 3. We're as confused as you are. This is CheckPoint. Welcome to CheckPoint. What a week, huh?
Graham, it's Wednesday.
You know, writing a meme into the intro doesn't really give us an exit strategy.
You should do what I do when I'm accosted on the street. Talk directly to the camera. Who likes corporate marketing? Great! Because if I got something cool to report, don't worry, it isn't the statue of a dead Commander Shepard floating in space. BioWare has already apologized for that and pulled pre-sales, so now you'll just have to 3D print your own. And it's not the rumor that we're going to hear about the Mario movie sequel soon. We all knew that was coming, and the only real question we have around that project is how they're going to cram an additional 30 face actors into a 90-minute voice-acted movie. No, this is about McDonald's! And Grimace's birthday, because McDonald's is releasing a new milkshake flavor in the United States, and it's called Grimace's birthday. You all know Grimace, right? He's a giant purple taste bud with a flared base, and he represents milkshakes, and on top of having a birthday, he also has his own online in-browser game, and it's also called Grimace's birthday. Developers Cruel Toys have it online at grimacesbirthday.com, but if you would rather just relive a youth you never had, just download it from the website, rename the MSI file to .gbc, and then load it onto your Game Boy Color because it's a literal Game Boy Color game. In 2023. It works on flash carts and GBC emulators, so load it up, get in the ball pit, and start pounding Shamrock Shakes until the tremors start.
Good news, gamers! Starfield, the hotly anticipated new RPG from Bethesda, has, quote, the fewest bugs any game from Bethesda has ever shipped with, according to Microsoft Game Studios head Matt Booty. The quote, which was both extremely funny and an excellent example of expectation management given Bethesda's previous track record, is just one of the gems Booty and Xbox head Phil Spencer dropped while chatting with Giant Bomb after last week's Xbox Games Showcase. Quote, the team has definitely matured. They've got Fallouts and Skyrims and Elder Scrolls under their belt. Truth be told, when the acquisition closed, this game had a significantly earlier ship date than when we're actually launching it, said Spencer. Which is honestly a very polite way of saying, we made them push the release date back 10 months for some deeply needed additional QA. The interview is honestly great PR and manages to make both Bethesda and Microsoft look good. If only Activision Blizzard, a company that is notoriously awful at image management, could talk to Microsoft and see if they'd be willing to share their public relations expertise. Oh, wait.
The ongoing gaming love pit that is Embracer Group has finally run out of lube and realized they need to start shrinking the amount of people they keep inviting to their figurative key party. Okay, good metaphor, but I owe you some facts. Embracer Group CEO Lars Wingefors recently announced that Embracer Group would be restructuring over the next year in 3 phases in order to achieve cost savings and reduce debt below 10 billion Swedish krona, or 9,967,084,062 Norwegian kroner, a currency which is objectively more fun than Swedish krona. As an aside, why are so many of you using krona but a different version? That's confusing. You should adopt something unique, like the dollar. This is what happens when you embrace too many folks, though. You keep spreading the love around, you give, and you give, and you give, and then inevitably you deprive them of earning a living. Here's a quote from the CEO. Embracer currently engages close to 17,000 people, and while that number will be lower by the end of the year, it is too early to give an exact forecast on this. That's right, a chunk of the 17,000 people working for companies in the Embracer Group have now entered the nervous refractory period of the business orgy, each of them wondering if they brought the wrong dip to the party and if they'll be asked to gather their clothes and GTFO. Embracer Group is doing their best to not lay this at the feet of the $2 billion partnership with an unknown entity that fell through, but they did also lower their earnings projection to somewhere between $655 million and $840 million. These seem like really big numbers, and of course, big numbers are always good. So I don't understand why they'd need to start firing people. But then again, I've never had a new entrant to the rub puddle walk away to the tune of $2 billion I just guessed I might earn next year. I mean, I could also just start alleging shit too, like how I only got one piece of cheese in my double cheeseburger the other day, which means that fast food transaction has somehow cost me $60,000. No, yeah, this is fun. Hey, the car wash didn't get all the bird shit off my car, so now I'm in debt for $27 million, and I'm firing 600 people who probably barely knew they worked for me. The lesson learned from this? The only people who should be allowed to form multi-adult families are people who can communicate with each other about important things like, how do we share affection fairly so no one feels left out? When are we going to have our next D&D session? And do we finally have enough working adults in the family so we can afford this beautiful fucking house?
Persona 3 is being re-released again. Originally released in 2006 for the PS2, the hit game was re-released as Persona 3 FES in 2007, adding some quality of life improvements and a playable epilogue, and then re-released again as Persona 3 Portable in 2009, which introduced even more quality of life improvements and a new playable female protagonist. And now, the base game is being remade entirely with Persona 3 Reload, scheduled for 2024, releasing for Windows and Xbox and probably some other things. But wait, you say, wasn't Persona 3 already re-released? Yes, that was Persona 3 Portable, which was ported to Switch and PS4 and Windows and Xbox back in January. But that's not the same thing as Persona 3 Reload, which won't include any of the Persona 3 FES or Persona 3 Portable editions until the remake itself is re-released in 2025 as Persona 3 Remake Ultimate Tartarus Edition, which hasn't been announced yet because it's a lie that I just made up so the story would have a punchline. But given Atlus's penchant for releasing games over and over and over again with more content and characters, will I still be lying in 2025?
Yes, of course, you will still be lying.
You don't think they're going to do the same thing they already did with Persona 4 and 5 and the original version of Persona 3? Atlus loves reselling you the same game with 20% more stuff.
Oh, no, they'll absolutely do that. It just won't be called Persona 3 Remake Ultimate Tartarus Edition. That's far too normal and makes too much sense. Remember, the re-release of Persona 5 was called Royal.
Okay, so what do you think they'll call the re-release of the Reload?
Persona 3 Royal with Cheese. Coming up, you can now emote the classic "This is fine" meme in Fortnite. And it is indeed fine because the meme's creator, KC Green, was paid for the use of his intellectual property. But think about how fine it would be if Epic paid for all the other emotes they lifted from TikTok dance videos.
I'm glad that you talked briefly about that baffling Mass Effect
Oh, good. Yes, okay.
statuette. Because, like, as people have pointed out, why only FemShep? Why not
Both Sheps.
Man-Shep or whatever you call them?
Let's have a swappable torso.
Yeah. Just the torso. You know, but also, you know, there was, like, there's some other things as well, but also
Like,
it's
why
just
isn't
like,
it posable? Yeah.
but it's like the notion of, like, we're going to do a figurine of this character from our game dead.
Yeah.
Like, ignore all the other things about, like, the skin tight suit and the pose and the fact that it's only the female version. It's like, why? Like, I don't want, like, a Final Fantasy VII statuette that's like, here's dead Eris, right? Like,
some of the most emotional moments from Final Fantasy VII. Yes,
yeah, it's like their thing was like, it's going to be a series of emotional moments. It's like, that was emotional, but, like, I don't want a statue. I don't want.
Even Siri can't believe it.
I know, right? But it's like, I don't want a statue of that, of dead corpse in space.
The press release says they say it's a conversation starter. I'm like, it has certainly started a conversation on the internet about what may or may not be appropriate.
What a great conversation!
It's funny too, because like even just the base thing of hey, your character is dead at the beginning of, I didn't even know, I've never played Mass Effect, but it's like your character's dead at the beginning of a game, and then apparently they come back to life or something. I don't really get it. So I'm lost there, but even on top of that, just because the next part of the conversation is like, she is kind of posed provocatively as a statue too, and I'm like, and that is again another thing to, that you have to think about. It's like, well, if we're going to show this dead woman in a skin tight bag, how should we make her look to the audience? And it's like, maybe you could have posed her in slightly different thing. Maybe she actually has that exact design in the like, maybe she's actually affecting that pose when she's floating through space dead. I don't know, but it has definitely touched off a thing of, did they take into account all the aspects of what this might look like, or did somebody in the merch department say, yo, we should do this, and say, yeah, that's a great idea, and they just kind of like ran through it to the end and didn't think to
only once they were like, hey, everyone, look what we did someone go, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The femship has no clothes.
Another thing that from one of the stories that we did do that leapt out at me, another quote from that Phil Spencer interview.
Oh yeah.
The
Starfield.
The Spencer Booty discussion on Starfield was, I'm paraphrasing slightly, but I think that he's basically like, we have every QA person across Microsoft Studios working on this game.
Well,
and it's just sort of like, great, but fuck, guys, like,
yeah, there's an implicit thing there saying, God, we found so many bugs in this game.
Right?
Yeah.
Like the notion, like, good, right? I'm glad that you're spending the QA. I'm glad that it was delayed. But the thing that where he said, where he's like, they were going to release it like way earlier than we did, and we had to be like, whoa, let's pump the brakes there. The idea that because it's Bethesda, that they were like, yeah. Because, it's like, well, let's wait until it's, in shape to ship, and Bethesda being like, yeah, it is. Look,
yeah,
it's just like, can we not? Could we
see
have
Jira? Yeah,
we have a Bethesda game that doesn't launch full of bugs and glitches? Wouldn't that be amazing?
It's a thing I don't think about, and I think now that I'm really thinking about it, it's like, obviously through game development, as new versions come out, like as new builds are coming out internally, QA is always having a look at stuff.
Oh yeah,
because they have to, and it's something I kind of take for granted. The fact that it's like, right, the bigger, because Starfield sounds incredibly complicated,
massive, yes,
yeah, and for the complexity of it, that you would have to run a ton of QA on all sorts of systems to try to see how they fail, how they interact, and like the amount of like. Because it brings me back to Tears of the Kingdom, right? We've been waiting 5 years, 6 years for that thing to come out, and it's like, well, why is that? It's like, maybe the last year really was just QA. Like, they're like, we're polishing it. It's like, that we should think of it as a code word for, we're doing quality assurance. We want to make sure everything works. Somebody did. Heather told me about a great trick, actually. Somebody made a boat with a proper propeller on it, because there's no propellers that you can just attach to stuff and do. And they're like, no, they went into a shrine where there's a propeller object you can attach stuff to. And instead they fused it to their sword. Then they left the shrine. Then they had it pulled off their sword. And then they have a propeller now they can use for stuff. So they could put it on a boat and go around with it.
Oh my God.
I know. And like, the idea is like, all the mechanisms in the game working as intended, and yet an unexpected thing that you didn't think could come about. And it's like, yeah, people are going to, if that's happening in that game, and Starfield is going to be huge, there's going to be no limit of crazy shit people are going to get up to in that game. Yeah. You don't really get your QA going, I think, until you actually go like 1.1, and then you realize all the stuff that everyone's just, the 10 million people that are playing your game are now figuring out all the little things they can actually do to it. That's got to hurt as a QA person.
So, we want to know what hurts. Blizzard has announced that the what little PvE content is going into Overwatch 2, the story missions, are $15.
That does hurt. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're part of a bundle. You have to buy one of these bundles. It was initially reported, confusingly, that it was like, to play them indefinitely, you have to do a cost. But there was this implication that there'd be some way to play them for free. No, you have to buy one of their like season bundles or something for $15 to be allowed to play what little PvE content is actually going in the game.
But you do get them indefinitely once you
you pay them for $15.
Okay.
Yes,
that's because that would be real weird if not.
Yeah, very, very strange.
I guess we're trying all sorts of new pricing options now in video games. That's what we come down to. So.
That's great.
All right, whatever.
We're taking next week off of CheckPoint because we are transporting Moonbase, and Are we
Tugging it out to a new orbit.
implying that because James asked us to remind you that we don't have a checkpoint for next week, is the implication that we're hoping for it to be back the week after that?
Well, we'll see, won't we?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It may be 2 weeks off checkpoint.
Yeah, but at least the one you know that you're not going to have.
Definitely
so,
the one. It depends on how long it takes us to set up an entire new studio. So yeah.
But we do love you and thank you for your support.
Yes. Please subscribe to the channel. Okay. Bye.